Now, about shading. In Maya, you create hard and soft edges. If I go into edge mode and select this edge, for example, these edges, for example, and I say right click, shift right click, and choose harden edge, go into object mode, exit, and now shading will display these edges as a hard corner, regardless of their angles. So if I move them like this, on auto they would naturally be sharper, but I can make any edge sharp even with a shallow angle. Same way, I can apply soft edges on everything. Even if I create a cube, for example, it has sharp edges now, but I can tell Maya that it should soften up edges, and now shading is like this. To control shading on an object in Max, let me just enter face mode, and as we can see here, these corners are not sharp as they should be. So Max uses moving groups instead of hard or soft edges. It's kind of the same thing, only it's defined by faces. So the edges of the defined moving group define the edge between them. So if I set this to moving group number 2, then it will create a hard edge between number 1, as seen here, and number 2. So down here in polygons moving groups is how you control hard and soft edges. If I make this one number 2 as well, it will create a hard edge between 1 and 2, but it softened it on 2, so I need to make this moving group number 3 like this, and now I have a corner, sharp corner. This is kind of tricky sometimes because, for example, I forgot my other moving group on like this. So if you have none, it's always sharp, and if I press 1 for these both, then it's smooth, and if I press 2 again, it will be smooth between it because it's also 1 and this one is 2, so it will create a soft edge here. And if I want to create a hard one, there should be a difference between them. So this is 3 and this is 2 and this is also 2. So that's how you control soft and hard edges in Max. To flip a face, you just select the face and say flip, and now this is the back side. To flip normals in Maya, let me just go into face mode and select a few faces. Everything regarding normals, you go up here to mesh display and you control here. So now I just press reverse and these normals are flipped. Back face culling is not turned on. So let me just select here back face culling, and now it's clearly visible that these faces are flipped. If you want to reset normals in Maya, select everything and say unlock normals firstly, because Maya has this locking normal system, and then you say set the face. And now you cannot automatically calculate the face normals in Maya, sadly, so I have to reverse this. And now if I, let's say, want to reset shading in Maya, because shading here is hard from reversing the edges, I just choose the object and say set the face. And now all faces have hard edges, and say soften edge like I did before. Okay, handling normals in Max. So I have this mesh here as a demo. As you can see here, there are a few errors. Some faces are flipped and some are detached from the body of this object. So to view normals, there are several methods, one of which we can go to the object properties, and if we say backface call, the flipped faces will be visible, so which ones they are, but of course that doesn't help us repair them, but at least we know which one they are without viewing normals themselves. If you want to view normals, you either have to use the edit normals modifier like this, which displays the normals themselves, and I'll get back to this in a second, or you have to use the edit mesh, and here if I go and toggle this on and select anything, it will display the normals of that element. So I have to toggle this for every element I want to use, and now I'm looking at vertex normals, and we can see here that they're pointing inwards. The scale is a bit large, so I'll just reduce it for the visual sake, and now they clearly display. Now there are several ways to repair these. We can just select the flipped faces, of course manually, and let me just delete this to get it out of the way. The others are flipped anyway, so we can either select them manually and say flip, and now it looks good again, or we can select everything and say unify normals with the single button, and it should repair everything except this detached face, of course, because this is a separate element now, and that's why there's this sharp edge. Now to get rid of the sharp edge, I need to control normals themselves, but I need the edit normals modifier for that. But before I do that, I just want to show you that if you have a large mesh and you don't want to use this method where you select things or select all and click unify, there's also a modifier for this called normal, and if you toggle this on, it should repair it, but it has a specific condition where your mesh must be an editable mesh. If it isn't, it won't work. Like it doesn't work on edit mesh, edit poly, editable poly, nothing else than editable mesh. So it has to be an edit mesh. You can also flip everything using this switch as well. So this is the flip and unify everything modifier with the condition that it is an editable mesh, which you can transform back to editable poly or just stack the modifier on top as usual. So there's nothing usual about that. So let me just go back here and go to edit normals and show you what you can do to get rid of this line with the detached element. So in cases like this where you need element detached, you can either select the normal, copy its value, select the normals you want to modify like this, and say paste value. It got rid of the line here. If it's green, then it means that it has been modified. Or you can select two normals like this and say average selected. And then because they share the same vertex, the average will be enough to get rid of that line. And now if I collapse, it's clearly visible that there is no more line, yet this object or element of this mesh is separate. Now let me just undo this real quick. And I just want to show that you can also modify normals with the rotate manually like this if you need custom normals for anything. or you can also move them slightly the same way. And that's about all about editing normals. I'll just reset this for beauty's sake with the normal modifier just to demonstrate, or I'll just select everything and I click and repair everything. Yet my custom normals have not changed, so I can't reset this unless I use the edit normals again and say reset, and everything pops back into place just as it was before with the sharp line included. And if you delete it, it just undoes the action, of course. That's all about normals in Max.
By default, objects in Blender are flat shaded. So to change shading and control it in Blender, you normally should right click and say Shade Smooth. There is also an Auto Smooth under this feature, which actually toggles on an option here in Object Data Properties, which you can toggle on under Normals, and then set the angle, which controls the smoothing based on it. Now, to have soft and hard edges like in Maya, you can control them manually by going into edit mode and selecting the edges you want to be hard, or in Blender's terms, sharp. So now, let's say I select these edges just for kicks, and of course some that makes sense to be hard as well, like this, and I right click and say mark sharp, or I control E and say mark sharp. And let's say I don't like this one and say control E, clear sharp, and so on. Right click, clear sharp. Now if I go out of edit mode, I can see that everything I selected is a sharp edge and everything else is smooth. Or actually everything else is as this threshold says it is. So by default in older versions of Blender, for everything to work, which I just explained, this value should be at the maximum of 180. And then you have either hard or soft edges. And these normals will be kept so you can export this object without any problems. That's how you control shading in Blender. To control normals in Blender, you have to go into edit mode and select this face, for example, and either go up here to mesh and say normals flip, or you just press Alt N and choose flip or any of the options here. So let's say flip, or if I choose this, I'll say split, and it will actually create these sharp edges because that's what split does. Now, backface culling is turned on here. If it's not turned on by default, you should go up here to this little arrow and the shading panel and say backface culling. If it's not on, it will just display like this, but you won't know which is which. So I really recommend turning it on. Or if you don't like that option, you can go up here and say face orientation. And now everything that is red is the back of the face, and everything that is blue is the front of the face. If I was to delete this face, for example, and see inside the object, you can see that all of the back faces are red. Now, if backface culling is on, red won't appear because backface culling turns the faces transparent. So this can be kept on or not. It's your choice. But in any case, using this menu with Alt N controls the normals, and there's also a very neat feature here. Let's say we have randomly flipped faces across the mesh like this, and I want to repair this really fast, so I just select everything and press Shift N, and it saved me a lot of time from selecting all of them manually. And this is actually the unify normals modifier from Max, I guess, or preset normals and so on. And to know what I did, I'll just undo and press Alt N, or go up here again and say recalculate outside. So that's why I press Shift N. I can also say recalculate inside, and it will flip everything, but it will make all my normals point the same way, correctly. Now if I press Shift N, it will point outside. These shading errors, of course, happened because I had all those freaky hard edges and everything. And now if I look at this like this, I would like to reset shading. So to reset shading, or if you have any issues, or that you feel that your normals are locked, you should go here to geometry data and say clear custom split normals data, and everything will be reset.